Welcome to another episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Thank you for being with us today. Lisa Rimmert is my guest, and we are both so glad that you guys are here. We're going to have it's a different kind of book. And I need to introduce myself. You probably know who I am, but I'm Karen E. Osborne, and I am author of 4 books. And my latest, True Grace, came out in September, and it's my first historical novel. It takes place in 1924, the Roaring Twenties, the Harlem Renaissance. And my guest today has written this really unusual book, and it's called Stay, My Forever Friendship with an Aging Dog, and it's a memoir. Lisa, I'm so glad that you joined us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about the book and all kinds of other things.
Yes, I am delighted. So this is what the description that I read of the book. This heartwarming and humorous book, well, this heartwarming and humorous book is for anyone who has ever cared for an elderly family member or has the good fortune, isn't that beautiful, to do so in the future. So that's really very, very beautiful. Yeah. So I noticed in your on your website that you describe yourself as a comedian. So I thought that's maybe where we should start before we talk about the book. Tell me about Lisa the comedian.
Sure, and I apologize if you can hear my dog having a sneezing fit in the background. Of course, they always pick the perfect times, right? Yeah, so I'm a comedian by night, I guess you would say, and a writer by day. And so I am mostly at home in Washington in my office, as you can see here, and doing writing on the computer, either for books that I'm writing or I do freelance writing for mostly nonprofit clients. And then at night, I get in my car and I drive to a comedy club or to a bar around the Seattle area usually, and tell some jokes to people.
So you're a stand-up comedian. That is
Yeah,
awesome.
it's a lot of fun.
Really. And you say that you write part-time for not-for-profits?
I do, yeah. My background is in nonprofit marketing and fundraising, and so in 2021, I left that full-time job and had the good fortune to be able to kind of break out on my own and do similar things, but as a freelancer. So that's what I do now.
Wow. So I don't know if you know this, but that's what I spent 45 years of my life doing.
Oh, really? I
I
didn't
was a
know that.
fundraiser. Yeah.
Oh,
My
okay.
last full-time job was vice president of college advancement in Trinity College in Hartford.
Okay.
And then for 26 years, 28 years, I was president of the Osborne Group. We were an international consulting firm helping nonprofits with board development and fundraising and all that sort of thing. And now my son owns the company, and I'm a full-time writer now and a serial
Of
volunteer
course.
as
Yeah.
well. So that's
That's
fun.
excellent.
I've met so many writers who have similar backgrounds. So maybe offline we could share. I could even tell you about and one of them I interviewed right here. She's doing so well. Rachel Housewell Hall. She's still writing. She still works as a development writer. She's a best-selling New York Times, USA Today mystery writer.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, I'd love to connect with her or anybody.
So it must be something about fundraising and marketing and communications that leads us to comedy and writing books.
Yeah, I think one through line is they all tend to be things you fall into. You don't know as a kid, you don't know that's an option maybe, but you kind of find yourself there.
It's true. It's true. Although my son did actually know it was a profession and chose it, but that's because of mom.
He had a good role model. Yeah.
So this whole notion of living with an aging dog, tell us, like, how did that come about? Why did you decide to write this memoir?
Yeah, well, honestly, it started out me just writing for me. This is my first book, so I had never experienced writing a book before. I had only written, donate now, read our newsletter, things like that. I had never attempted or even thought of attempting a book length project. So it's a whole nother beast to me. And so I really was learning and figuring out every single little step as I went. So when I first started writing, I was really only just writing things for me, for my own memory, just kind of like journaling.
Mm,
And then I decided, I think I want other people to read this too, because there's so much about caring for a dog of any age, but particularly a senior dog or any species of animal that can be a little bit isolating. Not just
mm,
because you're home and you're, trying to take care of their physical needs, but more so because it's an emotional thing. There's anticipatory grief because that dogs don't live forever.
mm.
And all these emotions that go into it that I think people kind of feel alone with, because it's still in 2023 gets downplayed as, well, it's just a dog, get another dog. So I think people hear those messages a lot and they feel alone in, taking care of an older dog, loving a dog so much. And then, if you lose a dog, feeling that grief. So I wanted to make sure people didn't feel alone and hopefully inspire people to be more present with their animals of any age.
Yeah. And also maybe people who are friends and family of that person. My dearest friend has a dog she's 15, I think now. And, her arthritis is bad and she has little leakage problems and all the old age things that, that humans suffer, but she's still alive and loves to go outside and roll in the grass. She just doesn't do it as quickly.
Yeah.
That's quickly, but I think it's helpful. Your book sounds like it would be helpful to people who are friends of the person and family members of the person who has an aging dog or cat, or because you don't want to say stupid things like you can always get another one. You know, you, it's such a callous thing. So it sounds like your
Yeah.
audience is broader than just the folks who are having them. So
Yeah, and the book reads like a novel. So even if you just like a nice story, it's a good fit for that too. But certainly dog lovers are kind of the main bread and butter of people who are interested.
yeah, and I'm glad to hear it reads like a novel. That sounds like a good thing. So I know writers who have whole different patterns of writing, and you have a night job, not a day job, but a night job as well. You have to write for yourself. You have to write your comedy skits and everything. Do you have like a process? Do you say I'm going to write every day, or I'm going to write a certain amount during the week, or what's your writing process like?
I'm not sure I would even call it that. So since this was my first book, I had no, you know, established process of what works for me, what doesn't work for me. And I wrote most of the book during the pandemic, like when we were still a little bit shut down. And so I had a huge, I mean, not that the pandemic was fortunate, but I had the luck of being able to have a lot of time and not a lot of social things. There weren't comedy shows going on in person. And so I
Right.
had a lot of time and flexibility to write whenever I wanted to write. I did take advantage a couple times during that process of National Novel Writing Month, which happens in
Yes.
November,
Yeah.
just because it was kind of fun to have a goal for a number of words I wanted to get down. So I did take that, I used that to my advantage, but overall, I'm not a process person. I'm not a routine person. And I've
Mm.
learned, I'm now 40. It took me 40 years to learn, and I'm still kind of learning what works for me and what doesn't. And even if it's something that works for 90% of people, it might not be something that works for me. But what does work, actually, I wonder if you've heard of this. There's an author, she does other things too, but she's written a couple of books called Gretchen Rubin. And she has this book and this whole theory of motivation styles. And one of them, it's called The Four Tendencies. I think that's the name of the book as well.
Hmm.
And one of them is the rebel. And that's the one you kind of don't want to be because it's the hardest one to motivate. And that's the one I happen to be. So it's basically like, I'm not extrinsically motivated. I'm not intrinsically motivated. I just do what I want when I want it. That's kind of the thing that motivates me. But which sounds bratty, I admit, but I've really worked to harness that, like to say, okay, if that's what works for me, let me see how I can make myself want to do certain things at certain times. And so anyway, when it comes to writing, I end up writing when I'm inspired to write, which could be, sadly, after a comedy show, which is too late to be staying up when you're 40. But it could be late at night. It could be first thing in the morning. But it's really when the mood strikes and I try to kind of harness my my rebel tendencies and make them work for me.
Yeah. So actually it sounds like you've gotten two perfect careers for a rebel,
Yeah.
right? Because your comedy routine and your writing routine, you work for yourself and you can work with your rhythms and you can work with the muse. And so that sounds like you've chosen
Yeah.
two really good path for yourself.
Yeah, I like to say that I had to work for myself because I'm unmanageable. So I really am the only person that can that can manage myself. And even I struggle.
So are you writing something else now that Stay is out in the world?
Yeah, it's about to celebrate its 1 year anniversary of being published. So that's very exciting. And I'm currently working on a second memoir. It's in the beginning stages, so I hesitate to even say what it's going to be about because if anybody out there's listening is a writer, you know that things can change quite a lot from beginning to end of the process. But I think what it will be about is basically my story of adopting a dog who was wrong for me. This is a different dog, mind you, than in the book Stay. But adopting a dog that was wrong for me and setting about trying to quote unquote fix her and maybe realizing she's not the one that needs all the fixing. Maybe it's time to look inward. So I think it'll be helpful to people who adopt a puppy of any kind, but particularly a difficult puppy or a dog that maybe doesn't match your lifestyle like you thought they might, and you have some struggles with acclimating to each other.
Yeah, and that sounds like that would also be very good for relationships,
Yeah.
or human relationships where we fall for somebody that we think we can fix. They'll be perfect once
Yeah.
I fix them. Hmm,
Yeah,
so
not so
much.
much.
And I
Exactly.
love the notion of using this relationship with your pet to look inward, find out things about yourself. That sounds really good. It sounds like it's going to be a great book. So, and tell us again what let's hold up the book cover and tell us what's the anniversary. Look
So
at
this
that. That's a great.
it was published in September of last year. So the 23rd was the date it was published. So we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary. I am very proud to say I've sold over 300 copies, which for me, I knew that 200 to 250 was kind of like the average lifetime sales of any book that's published. And so being a rebel, I wanted to beat that. And so I'm really excited, and hopefully we'll that's a learning process too. The whole writing thing was learning every step of the way. And then marketing is a whole, even though I've done it for nonprofits for a number of years, it's a totally different world when it's a book and when it's your own and it's your own money. And so I'm learning that process every step of the
Do you
way
think
too.
that your career helped you though? Do you think that your years of being a marketing professional helped?
Yeah, definitely. When I first started meeting and connecting with other authors, almost the number one thing I hear, maybe the number two thing, is that nobody wants to market themselves. Like everybody just wants to be in a room, like by themselves, cozy writing, and then hand it off and let somebody else take care of the networking and the self-promotion and all that stuff. but I had already been doing that for a long time. So, and as a comedian, you know, you have to self-promote as well. So that part I like. I'll self-promote all day long. And so I have the maybe the blessing of being an extrovert.
Yeah, and that edge of knowing and having the knowledge. So do you ever bring your book into, or bring your dogs into your comedy act?
I do,
Are they
yeah.
part of your
I have jokes about writing a book, jokes about being a pet owner, loving animals. I'm an animal person. I love all kinds of animals. So that naturally makes its way into any conversation I'm in, including from a stage. And then I sometimes I bring my book to shows if you're allowed to sell merchandise after, I'll bring my book and sell a couple copies at comedy shows. So it's a good kind of
Yeah, it's
crossover.
kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
So this is what are you reading? What are you writing? So we got to talk about the reading part.
Yeah.
So was there a book in your life that had a big impact on you? Did any book that you think, as a kid or as an adult, or just change things for you?
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about this recently, and the book that comes to mind first is Ishmael by Daniel Quinn, which was, I think it came out in
Mm,
the maybe early 90s, but I didn't read it until maybe undergrad or just after. So I was probably somewhere around 20 to 25. And it sounds, if you read the back cover, it sounds so preposterous, but it's really a great uh it makes you think. So it's this person sees an ad in the paper for someone. It's very vague. It's just like, I'm looking for someone who wants to change the world, and he's really intrigued. So he goes and meets with the person who puts the ad in the paper, and it turns out to be a gorilla. Stay with me. It's a fiction book. It turns out to be a gorilla, and then the whole book is kind of like this Socrates-esque conversation between the man and the gorilla, and it's talking about like the story that we tell ourselves about how people got here to existence, and what evolution, this our story of evolution. Our story kind of is like, and then we became humans, the end. And it's like, well, not the end. And
yes,
it's so
yes.
it's a lot about just the story that we tell ourselves about us and our relationship to the planet. And it's really a thought provoker. So that's kind of shaped not only how I write, but how I think about the world.
Oh, and do you have any recent reads that you could recommend?
Yeah, so I have a friend. I will say I might be biased, but I met her through her writing. So I was a fan of her writing before I knew her as a person. But she's written, Karen Lena Izzo is her name, and she has written a book that I think it was published in January. And it's her first book as well. So we're kind of on parallel paths together.
Mm,
And her book is called Downward Sizing Dog. And it's all about, my book is just a memoir. So any of my research was, let me go back through my emails or my journals or my
yeah.
text messages. Her research is like real research, where she's talked to scientists and veterinarians and all kinds of experts. And she's put together this basically a case for liking small dogs, um, which I've always considered myself kind of more of a big dog person.
Mm,
And she changed my mind. It's basically defending small dogs and saying the stereotypes that we have about small dogs are really unfair. And a lot of times they're kind of caused by the behavior of the person in the dog's life, not inherent to the dog. So
oh,
it's a nice thing, because I mean, we none of us like stereotypes, and we should try to fight against them, right? And so that kind of extends. It's start with people and then, but also include some dogs too. Like,
there's some dogs in the
yeah,
in the
think about,
mix there. Yes.
yeah.
Have you had a chance to read Lessons in Chemistry?
I haven't. No, it's on my list. It's been on my list for so
There
long.
is a wonderful dog in that. First of all, it's a wonderful book, but there's
Yeah.
amazing, amazing dog in that book. So after you read it, we have to talk. I want to
Okay.
know
Yeah,
what you think
I'll let you
about this
know.
dog.
Okay.
6:30. The name of the dog is 6:30. So
Oh, okay.
really, and she's funny. I think you'll love this book. She's very funny, and It's just a terrific read.
Nice.
Oh, I thank you. So interesting. It's always fun to find out that you have more things in common than you knew before you start talking to people, which is a
Yeah.
pleasure. And how can our audience be in touch with you? How can they follow you? Where can they follow you? Where can they find out more?
Yeah, so if you're in the Seattle or Tacoma area of Washington, you can come out to a show. That'd be amazing to see people that only exist to me on the internet right now. But if you're online, the best places to follow me are on Instagram. I'm at Lisa Rimmy. That's LISARIMMY, just a shortened, fun version of my last name, which can be hard to pronounce and spell. And then if you want to follow me, my work as a freelancer, maybe you're looking for someone to write some fundraising emails for you or whatnot. But also my book, get information about the book and all kinds of other things. You can go to my business's website, which is on the nose comms, COMMS.com.
Great. And interestingly, a lot of my followers are development people because, nonprofit people, because that was my life for so many years. So who knows? Somebody
Yeah.
might be, somebody might be paying attention and interested. And so thank you so much. And thank all of you for participating today. I'm so glad that you came. And I hope that we will see you next week on What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Have a great week, everybody. Bye, Lisa.
Bye. Thank you.